Heirloom by C.A. Wynn. The sparsely furnished room, with its black and brown decor, boasted a single window. Through it, a barren landscape of gray rock and sand sat silent. The star-filled sky above was broken only by a yellow planet just clearing the horizon. Her daughter, Rhyd, stood before the window. She held up a pendant turning its silver faces at the end of a chain. The charm seemed bigger in her small hands than Crianna remembered. The child's red hair drew Crianna's eyes. It made her happy to know she'd passed down more than just a family treasure. "What is it?" asked Rhyd. Crianna smiled as she placed the last pan in the drying basin. "An heirloom. It belonged to your great-grandmother." Rhyd's forehead furrowed. "What's an heirloom?" "It's something passed down," said Crianna. "From where?" asked Rhyd. "From the past," said Crianna. "Passed down from the past?" Rhyd giggled. Crianna rubbed the dish towel across her hands as she stepped toward her child. She sat at Rhyd's feet and reached for the tiny pendant. On its surface appeared several words. "It has been in our family a very long time," said Crianna. "What does it say?" asked Rhyd. "Well, it has my name on it," said Crianna. "Crianna?" asked Rhyd. "That's right," said Crianna. "Anything else?" asked Rhyd. Crianna flipped the object back and forth, frowning. "I don't remember the language." "Why would somebody give me something I can't read?" asked Rhyd. "She didn't give it to you," said Crianna. "She passed it to her daughter, your grandmother. One day, I will pass it on to you." "Did grandmother know what it said?" asked Rhyd. "She might have," said Crianna. Crianna placed the necklace in her child's small hands. Rhyd's eyes crossed as she pulled the object closer. "Maybe it says something." "I would guess it has good wishes," said Crianna, "like a prayer or a blessing." "A blessing from Earth?" asked Rhyd. Crianna thought for a moment. "Something like, 'May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be at your back.'" "What's a road?" asked Rhyd. Crianna laughed. "We don't have roads here, do we?" "And the wind?" asked Rhyd. "Well, we do have wind." She thought for a moment. They hadn't had wind with Rhyd. That was another world, another lifetime. The child pulled the necklace to her chest. "I'll tell everyone it's a blessing from my great-grandmother." Crianna smiled. "That's an excellent idea." Rhyd unclasped the chain and pulled it around her neck. She looked down, her small fingers struggling to attach the clasp. "Why did people leave Earth?" she asked. Crianna leaned her head back. "That's not an easy question to answer. I suppose it was for many reasons." "Like what?" asked Rhyd. Crianna pointed to the necklace. The language on the pendant was from a small country. Some of the people there traveled to other lands. They were looking for a good place to raise their children. "Was their country too small?" asked Rhyd. Crianna smiled. "People have always moved around. Sometimes it was to find food or to explore new places. They might have wanted to experience a different life." Rhyd screwed up her face. "They didn't like their life?" "Maybe they thought it could be better," said Crianna. "Is that 'cause the grass is always greener?" asked Rhyd. Crianna stared at the child, tension rising in her. It wasn't something Rhyd would have said. Crianna closed her eyes and breathed the words, "Pause simulation." The room fell silent, the image of Rhyd frozen in place. The hologram flickered slightly. Crianna lifted the pendant from the child's neck and slid it into her pocket. She looked out the window, its soft glow wavering with the rest of the artificial image. Her forehead began to feel heavy again. It was always this way before the tears came. The simulation held the tension at bay until it didn't. "End," she finally said. The room fell silent, lit only by a small lamp in the corner. She slid to the floor, glad for the darkness. Before long, deep sobs racked her body. When her crying eased, she reached into a pocket for her comm device. An image of Riyadh adorned its main screen. It was the picture of a younger child, her cherubic face still plump with the echoes of infancy. "I meant to leave it to you," said Creona. Her words hung heavy in the otherwise silent room. She stood, placed the comm device on a nearby table, and stepped toward the door. With the end of her sleeve, she wiped at her eyes. It would upset Moshta to know she'd been crying. The doorknob was cold in her hand. When she stepped outside of their makeshift hut, she could hear Moshta working. He was far off, but the sound of a falling tree was unmistakable. She made her way through the yellow and green landscape, her breath a faint cloud of vapor. The orange sky was something she'd have to get used to. At the top of the rise, she could see the edge of the nearby forest. Moshta was slicing through a downed trunk, his cutter a bright point of light. When she neared, Moshta looked up, sweat and dust clinging to his face. He dropped his gloves and rushed to her. "Have you been crying again?" She nodded, wiping at her face. "The simulation?" he asked. Her chin receded into her shoulders. "I know it's not easy, but we have to make a clean break," he said. Creona's head nodded slowly, the pace increasing as she wiped at her nose. She pointed at the downed trees. "Do you have to work so hard?" Her voice cracked with the strain. He pulled her close, resting her head on his chest. "This is how we start over." She reached a hand into her pocket. As her fingers found the pendant, she closed her eyes to the orange sky. End of Heirloom by C.A.Wynn.